A scribe puts down a clay tablet in a small room in the palace of Pylos. He places it on a shelf to dry. He leaves the room. He does not come back. 20 minutes later, the palace is on fire. The shelf does not burn. The tablet on it bakes in the heat and turns to ceramic. It will lie in the same room, in the same position, for 3,100 years. This is the story of how a fire saved a language by destroying everything around it. The Greece we remember comes later. Athens, Sparta, Homer reciting in the dark, marble columns, and the slow invention of philosophy. Before that Greece, there was another one. It had palaces, it had kings, it had warships moving between Crete and the Syrian coast. It had a writing system and an entire civil service of trained scribes who used it every day to count sheep and oil and weapons. Then, around the year 1200 before Christ, every one of those palaces burned to the ground in a span of decades. The writing was lost. For 3,100 years, no one alive on Earth could read it. In the year 1900, a British archaeologist named Arthur Evans dug the tablets out of the ground at Knossos. He spent the next 41 years failing to read them. He died failing. In the year 1952, a 30-year-old English architect named Michael Ventris read them. He announced it on the radio. 4 years later, he was dead. Between those two men, in a small apartment in Brooklyn, a woman sat at her dining table every night for 15 years with 180,000 index cards she had cut by hand from cigarette packaging during the war. The decipherment is built on her work. She died 2 years before it happened, and the man who finished it did not give her proper credit on the night he announced it. Her name was Alice Kober. This video carries her name forward. A shepherd is sitting on a stone above the plain of Argos. The afternoon is late, and the sun is low and yellow, and the light is the color of dry grass. His goats are scattered down the slope below him. He can smell them from where he sits, sweat and warm wool and the dust they kick up, and beneath that, the cooler smell of the stone he is sitting on. He looks across the plain. On the next ridge, perhaps half an hour's walk away, there is a citadel built into the hillside. The walls are made of stones so large that no man he knows could lift one. He has passed through the gate of that citadel many times. He goes there to deliver wool. The king lives inside. To him, the citadel is not old. The king is not legendary. The walls are not a ruin. He is sitting in the year 1300 before Christ, and what we now call the Mycenaean world is for him simply the world. There are perhaps 15 of these citadels scattered across the Greek mainland and the islands. Mycenae in the Argolid, Tiryns nearby, Pylos to the southwest on the coast of Messenia, Thebes in Boeotia, Athens, smaller, on a rocky hill that does not yet matter. Each of them is the seat of a wanax, a king, surrounded by a hierarchy of warriors and officials and craftsmen and slaves, supported by farmers and shepherds in the villages around. The citadels trade with each other. They trade with Crete, where 100 years earlier the Minoan palaces collapsed and the Mycenaeans took over. They trade with Cyprus for copper, with Egypt for ivory, with the Syrian coast for tin and dye, and luxury goods. The shepherd does not know most of this. He knows that the king sometimes wears armor of bronze plates that catch the sun. He knows that ships come and go from the harbor below the next ridge. He knows that the world is large and that he lives in a small, good corner of it. He stands up. He calls his dog. He starts the goats moving back down the slope before the light goes. He is one of the last generations to live in this world before it ends. A man of about 30 sits cross-legged on a low bench in a side room of the palace of Pylos. It is morning. Light comes in through a high window and falls across his lap. In his left hand, he holds a slab of wet clay, roughly the size and shape of a large index card. In his right hand, he holds a reed, sharpened at one end to a small triangular tip. He presses the reed into the clay. A small wedge-shaped mark appears. He presses again, slightly offset. Another mark. The two together make the sign for the syllable O, then another, Y, then another, Ka. He is writing the word O-Ka, a military post, a position of command. He is a scribe. There are perhaps 100 men like him in the Mycenaean world. They are not poets. They are not historians. They do not write down songs or prayers or anything anyone says. They write inventories. What they write is this: lists of sheep, lists of oil jars, lists of women working in the textile workshops with the rations of grain assigned to them, lists of bronze armor pieces issued to soldiers, lists of offerings sent to temples, lists of men available to row warships. They write the same kinds of things every day, in the same kinds of formulas, and when the clay tablet has dried hard, they hand it to a clerk who shelves it, and when the year is over, they wet the tablet again, and the writing dissolves, and they reuse the clay. The system is called Linear B. About 87 syllabic signs, more than 100 ideograms, small pictures of the thing being counted, a sheep, a jar, a chariot wheel. It is silent literature in the sense that it produced no literature at all. No poem in Linear B has ever been found. No prayer, no story, no letter from one person to another, nothing. Everything the Mycenaeans wrote was bureaucracy. Every tablet that survived 3,000 years and reached our hands is, in essence, a spreadsheet. This is worth remembering because when Linear B is finally read in the 20th century, people will be disappointed. They had hoped for Homer before Homer. What they get is the king's accountant on a Tuesday in spring, counting how many goats are owed by the village over the hill. The scribe placed the tablet on the shelf to dry. He picks up the next blank. A 100 years earlier, in a different palace on a different island, another man sits doing the same thing. He is in Knossos, on the north coast of Crete. The year is around 1450 before Christ. He is a Minoan scribe, and he is writing in a script that 3,500 years from now, no human being alive will be able to read. The clay is the same. The reed is the same. The light coming through the high window is the same. The motion of his right hand pressing wedges into wet clay is the same. But the signs he is making are not Linear B. They are the older script that the Mycenaeans will adapt later. We call it Linear A. He writes a formula at the top of the tablet, Ja sa sa rame. It is a ritual phrase. It appears at the start of libation tables across Crete. He has written it hundreds of times. It is as familiar to him as the sound of his own name. We do not know what it means. Linear A was used across the Aegean for roughly 350 years, from about 1800 to 1450 before Christ. It was the writing system of the Minoan world, the civilization that built the palaces of Knossos and Phaistos and Zakros, that produced the frescoes of dolphins and bull leapers that traded across the eastern Mediterranean before the Mycenaeans existed as a power. Around 1450, the Mycenaeans crossed from the mainland, took Crete, and kept the script. They modified the signs slightly. They used it to write their own language, which was an early form of Greek. That modified system is Linear B. The signs of linear A and linear B overlap by about 80%. We know how the syllables of linear B sound because linear B was deciphered. If we apply those sound values to linear A, we get pronounceable sequences. Jasasarami, Asasarami, but the language underneath them is not Greek. It is not any language we know. It may be a language isolate. It may be related to something on the Anatolian coast. We do not know. The scribe finishes his tablet. He places it on the shelf. He is the last link in a chain whose first link we have not found and whose meaning we have not recovered. He writes with absolute confidence. He has no idea he is writing into a silence that has not yet ended. In a sanctuary just outside the palace of Pylos, a priestess is standing in front of a small altar. It is late afternoon. The light is sideways and gold. She can smell the olive oil burning in the lamps and the wool of her own robe, and, faintly, the sea. Behind her, a scribe is writing. He writes on a tablet what she has just told him, offerings of oil for the gods. He writes their names in syllables: Poseidao, Poseidon, Hera, Hera, Emaa, Hermes, Atana, Potinija, Athena the lady, Dionyso, Dionysos. The priestess watches him write. She has done this hundreds of times. To her, there is nothing remarkable about the list. These are the gods of her city. They have always been here. They will always be here. She gives the scribe the next entry, and he writes it down. When this tablet is read for the first time in the 20th century, 3,200 years from now, classical scholars will sit up in their chairs. They had believed for almost a century that Dionysos was a late god, that he had arrived in Greece centuries after Homer from somewhere in the East, that he was the god of an outsider cult absorbed into the Olympian pantheon long after the others were already in place. The tablet at Pylos will prove them wrong. Dionysos was there from the beginning. So was Athena. So was Hermes. So was Poseidon, who in the Mycenaean world was not yet the second-tier god of the sea, but the major god of the mainland, more important than Zeus in some places. The religion of classical Greece, the gods Homer would sing about 5 centuries later, was not invented in the Dark Ages and the Archaic period. It was already in place before the palaces fell. What the priestess does not know, what the scribe does not know, is that they are recording the survival of something. The Mycenaean political system will be destroyed. The Mycenaean economy will be destroyed. The Mycenaean palaces will burn. The script they are using will be lost. But the gods on this tablet will walk out of the fire. 8 centuries later, on a different hillside, in a different Greece, a man named Homer will sing about them by name. He will not know that he is repeating a list that a priestess at Pylos already gave. The scribe finishes the tablet. He places it on the shelf to dry. A man is standing on the dock at Ugarit. The sun is high and white, and the dock is hot under his sandals, and the air smells of fish and salt, and the tar they use to caulk the hulls. His ship is tied behind him, riding low in the water. He is supervising the unloading. He is a Mycenaean merchant. He has come from the harbor at Pylos by way of Cythera and Crete and Cyprus. The ship is carrying olive oil in 2-handled jars and painted pottery from the workshops at Mycenae, and wool. He will trade them for copper from the Cypriot mines and tin from somewhere further east that even he is not entirely sure about, and Egyptian linen and lapis lazuli that has come overland from Afghanistan through a chain of merchants he will never meet. On the dock around him, men are speaking 4 languages he can recognize and 2 he cannot. Egyptian dock workers, Hittite officials in their long robes, Cypriots haggling with everybody, Ugaritic merchants with their wax tablets and their scribes, Canaanite captains arguing about harbor fees. The world is small here. Everyone trades with everyone. This is the apex of the Mycenaean world, somewhere around 1250 before Christ. Their pottery has been found from the coast of Spain to the banks of the Euphrates. Their ships call at every major port in the eastern Mediterranean. Their kings exchange letters with the kings of the Hittites and the pharaohs of Egypt. In the Hittite archives, a power across the Aegean is mentioned by name, Ahiawa. It is almost certainly the Mycenaeans. The Hittites consider them important enough to negotiate with on equal terms. The merchant on the dock at Ugarit does not think of himself as living in a golden age. He thinks of himself as living in a season when the trade is good, the harvests have been adequate, the piracy has been manageable. The kings of the citadels have not been at war with each other recently. His ship has made the run 6 times in the last 2 years without losing a man. He finishes the unloading. He pays the harbor master. He goes to find a tavern. He will make this voyage 2 more times. After that, the harbor at Ugarit will not exist. In a different kind of room, in a different kind of capital, another scribe is at work. He is not writing on clay. He is cutting into stone. He is in Pyrameses, the new capital of Egypt, under the pharaoh Merneptah. The year is 1207 before Christ. He sits on a low stool with a bronze chisel in one hand and a wooden mallet in the other. He is cutting hieroglyphs into a slab of granite the height of a man. The dust is fine and white, and it sticks to the sweat on his arms. What he is carving is a victory inscription. The pharaoh has defeated an enemy. The enemy is not one army. The enemy is a coalition of peoples moving across the eastern Mediterranean, peoples that the Egyptian scribes do not entirely know how to name. The text on the stone calls them the peoples of the sea. Sea peoples. The Egyptians win this engagement. They will win another, more famous, 20 years later under Ramesses III, who will record the second battle in pictures on the walls of his mortuary temple at Medinet Habu. In those pictures, the sea peoples will arrive in carts with their wives and their children and their household goods piled on top. They will not be raiders, they will be refugees. They will have nowhere to go back to. The scribe in Pyrameses does not know any of this yet. He is carving the names of the defeated peoples in his careful Egyptian script. Shurden, Shekelesh, Luka, Ekwesh. The names are foreign to him, and he records them as best he can. In the Aegean, at the same hour, the Mycenaean palaces are still operating. The scribes are still counting sheep. The merchants are still sailing to Ugarit. The harvests are coming in, but the climate has been shifting for 2 decades. The summers are drier, the winters are shorter. The grain yields in Anatolia and the Levant are falling. There are mega droughts in the Hittite heartland that the Hittite kings are writing desperate letters about, asking Egypt to send grain. The whole system that allows Mycenaean merchants to sail from port to port across the eastern Mediterranean is held together by the assumption that each port will still be there next year. The scribe in Pyrameses finishes his line of hieroglyphs. He sets down the chisel. He drinks water. Back in Pylos, back in the small room with the high window and the bench, the scribe who was writing in chapter 2 is still there. He is older now. The light in the room is the same. The clay is the same. His hands are the same hands, only the skin is thinner. What he is writing is not the same. He is no longer counting sheep. He is no longer recording oil rations for the textile workshops. He is writing the tablet that archaeologists 3,000 years from now, will call the OK Tablet. Pylos, and 657. It is a list of military positions along the coast of Mycenae. Each entry names a commander and a place and a number of men. Mawalimo, commander of the watch at the river mouth, 30 men. Etewa, commander of the watch at the headland, 40 men. Nuapeo, commander of the watch at the bay, 20 men, and so on, down the western coast of the Peloponnese, all the way to the Cape. The Pylian state is positioning lookouts. It is mobilizing rowers. The N724 tablet, written by the same hand, or a hand very close to it, lists the men assembled to row the warships. The Wanax of Pylos knows something is coming from the sea. He does not know what. He does not know when. The scribe finishes the line. He starts the next. His handwriting is steady. He has been doing this for 30 years, and his hand does not shake even when the content has changed. To him, this is still the work. The work is the work. Outside, in the harbor below the palace, the warships are riding at anchor with their rowers already aboard. The watchmen are at their posts. The signal fires are stacked and ready. Somewhere out beyond the horizon, ships are coming that have already made other harbors burn. The scribe finishes the tablet. He places it on the shelf to dry. He writes another, and another, and another. The shelf will not be emptied at the end of the year. The clay will not be wetted down and reused. The tablets he is making in these last weeks will stay on the shelf, hardening in the heat of the room, waiting for a different kind of heat. He does not know that yet. He picks up the next blank. We are standing at the end of the Mycenaean world. The merchants are still sailing. The scribes are still writing. The shepherds are still moving their goats up the hillsides above Argos and Pylos and Thebes. Most of the people we have met so far will not see next year. The clay tablets they are making in these final weeks should not survive. They were never meant to. The Mycenaean scribes did not bake their tablets. They air-dried them. When the year was over, they wet the clay again, and the writing dissolved, and the clay went back to the cycle. What is coming is fire. The fire that destroys these palaces will, by accident, do something the scribes never thought to do. It will bake their tablets hard. The administrative records of the last days will turn to ceramic and lie in the rubble for 3,100 years. In a place that does not exist yet, on an island called England, in a city called Brooklyn, people will be born who will spend their lives reading what these scribes are writing tonight. 2 of them will die before they read it. Let's go back to Pylos. The fire is coming. A young man is running up the road toward Pylos. He is barefoot, his sandals broke an hour ago somewhere in the hills, and he left them by the side of the path. The skin on his soles is bleeding, but he is no longer noticing it. He has been running, with breaks for walking, since dawn. It is late afternoon now. He reaches the outer gate of the palace. The guards know him. He is one of the runners, the men whose work is to carry messages between the palaces. He has come from Thebes. He cannot speak when he arrives. He bends over with his hands on his knees, and his lungs make a sound like tearing paper. The guard hands him a cup of water. He drinks. He cannot drink properly because his hands are shaking. The water runs down his chin and onto his chest. When he can speak, he says 4 words. Thebes has fallen too. The guard does not answer. He turns and walks into the palace to find the Wanax's chamberlain. The runner stays bent over by the gate. He is thinking that he passed through Thebes a year ago. The market had pomegranates. The walls were intact. The painted plaster in the audience hall showed women carrying jars. Inside the palace, the chamberlain receives the message. Thebes is the 3rd citadel to fall this season. Orchomenos went first, 2 months ago. Then Iolkos, now Thebes. The chamberlain does not know what is doing this. No one knows. The reports do not name a single enemy. Some say it is the sea peoples. Some say it is internal revolts in the palaces themselves, the lower orders rising against the Wanaxes. Some say it is famine driving men to fight each other for grain. In Anatolia, the Hittite capital of Hattusa has burned to the ground. Letters from Ugarit speak of enemy ships off the coast. What is happening is that the whole system is coming apart at once, not in one place, everywhere. The chamberlain goes to inform the Wanax. The runner stands up. He walks slowly into the palace courtyard. He sits down with his back against the wall. He closes his eyes. He thinks about the pomegranates. It is the next morning. The scribe is back in his room. The light through the high window is the same light it has been for 30 years. He sits on the bench. He picks up a slab of fresh clay. He picks up his reed. He writes. The entry is routine. It is the assignment of bronze rations to the smiths working on the next batch of spearheads. Standard formulas, a number, an ideogram for bronze, a list of names, a total. He writes the way he has always written. The signs are steady. The wedges are crisp. The lines are even. He does not know that this is the last tablet of his life. He does not know that no Mycenaean will write another tablet in Pylos after today. He does not know that the Wanax in the audience chamber is hearing reports of smoke on the northern horizon. He does not know that the harbor watchers have lit the first signal fire. He does not know that the men he is listing rations for will not get the rations because the smiths will not work tomorrow, because the smithy will be on fire. He finishes the entry. He turns the tablet over. He starts the next line. He hears nothing unusual. The palace is quiet. The administrative wing is always quiet in the morning. Somewhere down the corridor, a clerk is moving tablets from one shelf to another. The smell of bread is coming from the kitchens. A bird is singing on the roof. He writes for another 20 minutes. He completes one more tablet. The tablet records, in 2 careful columns, the contributions of bronze items from villages in the western district of Pylos. 30 villages. The totals add up correctly. He places the tablet on the shelf to dry. He stands up. His back hurts. He has been sitting on this bench for too many years. He stretches once and goes to find water. The room is empty when he leaves it. The shelves are full. The tablet he just finished is on the 3rd shelf from the floor, between 2 older tablets, drying in the morning warmth. It will still be there tomorrow. It will still be there 100 years from now. It will still be there in 1939, when an American archaeologist named Carl Blegen will lift it out of the ash. The scribe walks down the corridor toward the courtyard. He is not thinking about the work. He is thinking about water. He does not come back. A servant runs into the administrative room with the high window. He is perhaps 20 years old. He has been sent to fetch the senior scribe. The Wanax wants him in the audience chamber. The servant does not know why. The room is empty. The shelves are full of tablets. The afternoon light has moved across the floor and is now low and orange. From the corridor behind him, he hears something that does not belong. A crackle, a draft of hot air. He turns. At the far end of the corridor, smoke is coming through the doorway from the kitchens. The smoke is the wrong color. It is not the kind that comes from a cooking fire. He looks back at the shelves of tablets. There are perhaps 1,000 of them. He could not carry more than 10. He hesitates for one moment in a doorway on a hot afternoon with the smell of something burning behind him. He runs out into the courtyard. He does not come back. The room is now empty. The fire takes another 6 minutes to reach it. When the fire enters the small administrative room of the Palace of Pylos, it enters silently. The walls are mud brick on stone. The beams above are old cedar. The shelves are clay. The first thing the fire does is collapse the cedar beams. The roof falls inward. The shelves below the roof do not fall, because they are masonry built into the wall. The temperature in the room reaches 600 degrees Celsius, then 700, then 800. The air in the room is no longer air. It is a moving column of incandescent gas. On the third shelf from the floor, in the position where the senior scribe placed it that morning, there is a clay tablet recording the bronze contributions of 30 villages in the Western District. The clay tablet does not know what is happening. The clay tablet does what wet clay does in a kiln. The water in it boils away first, in the first 30 seconds. Then the silicate particles in the clay, which have been waiting since the river deposited them in the soil, begin to vitrify. They fuse. The clay turns from a soft material that dissolves in water into a hard ceramic material that does not. In 15 minutes, every tablet in the room has been baked harder than any Mycenaean scribe ever baked a tablet on purpose. They are now ceramic. They will not dissolve in rain. They will not be ground down by their own weight. They will sit in this room in approximately the position where they were placed, while the palace falls in on top of them, while the palace becomes a hill, while the hill becomes farmland, while the farmland passes through Greek hands and Roman hands and Byzantine hands and Ottoman hands. The fire that destroys the Mycenaean world is also the fire that preserves its only surviving writing. It does this without knowing it is doing it. It does this because there is no one alive in the room to put it out, and because no one ever thought to put these tablets in a kiln on purpose, and because the chemistry of clay does not require intention. The gods on the tablet in the sanctuary at Pylos walk out of the fire as ceramic. Poseidon, Hera, Athena, Dionysos. The shelf cools slowly through the night. The same hillside above the plain of Argos. 5 centuries later, a shepherd is sitting on a stone. He is not the shepherd from chapter 1. That shepherd died around 1250 before Christ. This one is a descendant, linguistically perhaps, but not culturally. The world has changed enough that he would not recognize the dead man as kin. The light is the same. The goats are the same. The wall on the next ridge is the same. The walls are still there. They are older now, more weathered, half buried in vegetation. They are still made of stones too large for any man he knows to lift. He thinks the Cyclopes built them, one-eyed giants. The old stories say so. He has no reason to doubt the old stories. The walls do not look like anything men make. He is sitting in the year 700 before Christ. He is contemporary with Homer, who is, somewhere in Ionia, dictating the Iliad to a scribe. The Iliad will mention Agamemnon, king of Mycenae, rich in gold. It will not know who actually built the walls, or what language Agamemnon spoke, or that there was a writing system in the citadel 400 years before the Greek alphabet existed. The Mycenaean world has become myth. The myth has become the Iliad. The Iliad will become the foundation of classical Greek literature. The actual Mycenaeans, the actual scribes, the actual tablets will lie under the ground. The Greeks of the classical period will visit Mycenae as tourists. They will marvel at the walls. They will write poems about them. They will not dig. The Romans will do the same. The Byzantines will do the same. The Crusaders will pass through. Ottoman shepherds will graze their flocks. The plain of Argos will pass through 6 empires. In the year 1876, a wealthy German businessman named Heinrich Schliemann will arrive at Mycenae with a team and start to dig. He will find the shaft graves. He will find a gold death mask. He will send a famous telegram to the king of Greece. I have gazed upon the face of Agamemnon. He will not find any tablets. The tablets are at Knossos and at Pylos, and no one is digging there yet. The shepherd in the year 700 finishes his work. He calls the goats. He starts down the hill before the light goes. A different man on a different hillside. April 5th, 1900. The hillside is on the north coast of Crete, just south of the harbor of Heraklion. The man is 49 years old. His name is Arthur Evans. He has been digging here for 2 weeks. He sits in the shade of a partial wall, writing a letter. The light is hard and white. The dust from the excavation is on his hands, on his trousers, on the page he is writing on. The letter is to a colleague named Federico Halber. He writes, "It is something quite unique. Nothing Greek, nothing Roman. Perhaps it is best a man could see in a single lifetime. What he has been uncovering is the palace of Knossos. He does not yet know how large it is. He will spend the next 35 years finding out." Within weeks of the letter, the first clay tablets emerge from the earth. Some are in one script, some are in another. He names them Linear A and Linear B. They are the first writing recovered from the Greek world before Homer. Evans cannot read them. No one can. He believes they record a language he calls Minoan, pre-Hellenic, native to Crete, unrelated to Greek. He will hold this belief for the rest of his life. In 1921, he begins publishing The Palace of Minos at Knossos, 4 volumes, 2,000 pages, the work that will define Aegean archaeology for a generation. The Linear B tablets are cataloged and photographed and discussed. They are not deciphered. In 1936, Evans is 85 years old. He gives a lecture at the Royal Academy of Arts in London on the Minoan civilization. The audience includes a group of schoolboys from Stowe School on a tour. One of them is 14 years old, thin, dark-haired. His name is Michael Ventris. After the lecture, the boy approaches Evans and asks a question. "Did you say the tablets haven't been deciphered, sir?" Evans confirms it. The tablets have not been deciphered. The boy decides at that moment that he will decipher them. In 1939, an American archaeologist named Carl Blegen begins digging at Pylos on the western coast of the Peloponnese. In the first season, his team finds 1,100 more Linear B tablets, including, almost certainly, the one the senior scribe placed on the 3rd shelf from the floor on his last morning. The tablets at Pylos are not in Crete. They are on the Greek mainland. This is decisive. Whatever language Linear B records, it cannot be a Minoan language confined to Crete. It must be the language of the Mycenaean Greek mainland. Evans, 88 years old, in failing health, does not accept the implication. He dies in 1941, still believing in Minoan. The tablets sit in museum drawers in Athens and Heraklion and the basement of the Ashmolean. They wait. A woman is sitting at her dining table in a small apartment in Brooklyn. It is night. It is winter. The radiator is making the slow ticking sound that old radiators make. The window beside her has frost on the inside of the glass. The table is not set for dinner. It is covered edge to edge with index cards. Some of the cards are in small stacks held together with rubber bands. Some are in piles. On the floor around her chair, there are wooden orange crates that she has stood on end and used as shelves. The crates are full of more cards. In total, there are something close to 180,000 of them. She cut most of them by hand from the cardboard of empty cigarette packs during the war when paper was rationed. A cigarette is burning in a glass ashtray. The lamp on the table is yellow. The light it makes is a small, warm circle in the cold apartment, and she is at the center of the circle, leaning forward over an enlarged black and white photograph of a Linear B tablet. Her name is Alice Elizabeth Kober. She is 40 years old. She was born in 1906 in Yorkville, in Upper Manhattan, the daughter of Hungarian Jewish immigrants named Franz and Katharina. She went to Hunter College on scholarship. She has a doctorate in classics from Columbia. She has been teaching Latin and Greek at Brooklyn College for almost 2 decades, a public institution that does not give her time or money or status for research. She is an associate professor. She has been promoted this year after 20 years on the faculty. She does her real work at night. At this table, she has been working on Linear B for 15 years. She believes, without yet being able to prove it, that whatever language the script encodes is inflected, that the same word, depending on grammatical role, takes different endings. To prove this, she has been looking for patterns of 3, sequences that begin with the same signs and end with different signs, the way Latin would write amicus, amici, amico for the same word in 3 cases. In 1945, she finds them. In a paper in the American Journal of Archaeology, she publishes what will later be called Kober's triplets. They prove inflection. They do not give the sound values. They give the structure beneath the sounds. In 1946, she goes further. She identifies what she calls bridging syllables, signs that link the stem to the ending, signs that must share either a consonant or a vowel with their neighbors. She begins to build a grid, 10 columns, 5 rows. Each cell will eventually hold a sign organized by these shared phonetic relationships. She does not yet know the sounds. She is too careful to guess. What she has built by the end of 1948 is the forensic primer for a decipherment. In May 1950, at the age of 43, she dies of cancer, almost certainly tobacco-related. 2 years before the script she dedicated her life to is read. Her brother sends her papers to a colleague named Emmett Bennett. Bennett sends them on to a young Englishman named Michael Ventris. The cards travel in cardboard boxes she made herself. Bush House, London. The 1st of July, 1952, evening. The studio is small and cold. Acoustic panels on the walls. A green light beside the microphone. A man of 30 sits at a small table. Light shirt, gray jacket, dark tie. He looks younger than 30. His name is Michael Ventris. By profession, he is an architect. He has been working on Linear B since he was 14 years old in his spare time, on weekends, on trains, at his drafting table after work. His mother was Anna Dorothea Janasz, a Polish Jew who died during the war in circumstances he does not speak of. He has been invited to talk about a recent publication by Sir John Myers. He uses the slot to announce something else. He leans toward the microphone. He says, "During the last few weeks, I have come to the conclusion that the Knossos and Pylos tablets must, after all, be written in Greek, a difficult and archaic Greek, seeing that it is 500 years older than Homer." He gives examples. Konosso is Knossos. Amniso is Amnisos, the harbor of Knossos. Turiso is Tilissus. He reads names of shepherds, of potters, of bronzesmiths, Greek names, recognizable Greek names 500 years older than Homer. He does not give Alice Kober proper credit. He mentions her once, in passing. The grid she built, the inflection she proved, the cards she cut by hand. These are the instruments he is using as he speaks. He does not say so. Later, in lectures between 1952 and 1956, he will credit her more substantially. No one will notice. In Cambridge, a 32-year-old philologist named John Chadwick is listening. He writes to Ventris the next morning. Collaboration begins. Documents in Mycenae and Greek, the book that will define the field, is finished in the summer of 1956. On the night of the 6th of September, 1956, Ventris is driving home to Hampstead. Near Hatfield, Hertfordshire, he collides with a parked lorry. He is 34. The coroner returns a verdict of accidental death. The book is published a few weeks later. He never sees it. The cards stay in cardboard boxes she made herself. In 1960, her brother sends them to the University of Texas at Austin. They sit there for 50 years. In 2010, an obituarist for the New York Times named Margaret Fox flies to Austin. She opens the boxes. She reads every card. In 2013, she publishes The Riddle of the Labyrinth. She gives Alice Kober her name back. This video continues that gesture. The Mycenaean world collapsed around the year 1200 before Christ. The palaces burned. The fires destroyed everything they were capable of destroying. Lives, hierarchies, ships, harbors, the trade routes that had held the Eastern Mediterranean together for 2 centuries, the writing system that had served the palace bureaucrats for 150 years. But the fires did not know how to read. They could not tell the difference between a wooden beam and a clay tablet on a shelf below it. And so the tablets, which were meant to be temporary, wet clay that the scribes were going to wet again at the end of the year, became permanent. The destruction was the preservation. The thing that ended the civilization was the same thing that carried its writing forward, unread, for 3,100 years, until someone arrived who could read it. This is the first paradox of this channel. Sometimes the thread is carried by forces that do not know they are carrying anything. Then there were 3 people. Arthur Evans dug the tablets out of the ground in 1900 and spent the next 41 years failing to read them, holding to a hypothesis that was elegant and wrong. He died in 1941, 90 years old, still believing. Alice Kober, working at a dining table in a small apartment in Brooklyn for 15 years, with cardboard cards she cut by hand from cigarette packs, proved that the underlying language was inflected, identified the bridging syllables, built the grid. She published 3 papers between 1945 and 1948 that are the technical foundation of the decipherment. She died in May 1950, 43 years old, 2 years before the decipherment. Michael Ventris, working in the evenings after his architectural practice, used Kober's grid to make the final leap in the spring of 1952. He announced it on the BBC in July. He died on the road home from a long day's work in September 1956, 34 years old, weeks before his book was published. 90, 43, 34, 3 people, 3 deaths, 3 pieces of work that none of them finished. The thread sustained by a chain in which every link broke before the next link was forged. The popular history of this decipherment has 2 British men, Evans discovering, Ventris deciphering. Alice Kober was erased. A woman, an American, the daughter of immigrants, teaching at a public college with no elite institution to defend her name after her death. When Ventris announced on the radio in July 1952, 2 years after she died, he did not give her proper credit. He gave it later in lectures. No one noticed. In 2010, an obituarist named Margaret Fox went to the University of Texas at Austin and opened the cardboard boxes Kober had made with her own hands during the war. She read 180,000 cards. She wrote the book that recovered the name. This video in 2026 continues that gesture. There is one more thread still hanging. The Minoan script that came before Linear B, the script the Mycenaeans adapted, the one the priestess at Pylos was not yet writing, has never been read. Linear A is still silent. The earlier link in the chain is still waiting. We do not know who will read it. We do not know if anyone will. The last thing to say in this video is her name, Alice Kober. 28 videos, 3 arcs. We have walked through Carthage, China, the Hittites, Egypt, Corral, India, Aksum, Byzantium, Polynesians, Sasanians, Armenians, Sumerians, Maya, Indus Valley, Minoans, Doggerland, Tartessos, Cucuteni Tripilia, Sanxingdui, Olmecs, Moche, the Plain of Jars, Behistan, the Volga Vikings, Inca, Khmer, Celts, Mycenae. We have named the carriers: Maupiailug, Sima Kian, Hrozny, Champollion, Ruth Shady, Princep Frumentius, Bessarion Polybius, Muhot, Madeline Kalani, George Smith, Walter Alva, Marion Sterling, Yan Daocheng, Kvoika, Chen Xiandan, Skopal, Bung Sahip, Henry Rawlinson, the Kurdish boy, Ibn Fadlan, Zeki Validi Togan, Peach Man, Bingham Guaman Poma, the monks of Iona, Henry Jones, Arthur Evans, Michael Ventris, and Alice Kober. Each of them carried something forward in stubbornness, in patience, in silence, or in courage. Each of them did the work that came to them in their time, in their scale. The channel pauses here. Time to think about what comes next. Carry what is yours to carry, in your scale, in your time. Witness the long thread.